Our today lecturer and both the tutor at Cherkasy Zoo workshop is Fulco Treffers. He's a Dutch architect and urban researcher, and also the founder of 12N Urban Matters Studio. Most of his works is devoted to urban planning, and today he will probably tells us about participation in as a source of urbanism.
Thank you for inviting us. A lecture about urban planning in an open source way, and I'll lead you through it. I was here pretty much a year ago, and part of the presentation is the same, but now a little bit different angle and some extra information as well. It's not about the zoo, but because that's what the students are working on. Saturday in the afternoon there will be a presentation about the zoo, but if you've got questions about all kinds of animals, don't hesitate to ask. Maybe I know the answer. First, what have I been doing the last few years? I started working in 2000 as an architect at an architecture office in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and I was being part of a team that making this kind of buildings and houses and industrial buildings and small regular Dutch architecture, modern architecture. And well, after 2 years I thought, okay, maybe the urban planning is a little bit more interesting for me, because I thought that I was, after 2 years, not getting anywhere, not going for another place. So I started working at a company in Utrecht, and I was making these kind of plans, and I was all the time collages and photoshopping, doing all these kind of visions for the future, but I wasn't really sure about my future, what to do. Was it a good decision for me to be an architect or an urban planner? And at the same time, I had a kind of a parallel life, and it was being a founder and also the main player in an incubator. So it was a place where like 80 artists and musicians, they had studios, and it was called Temporary Art Center, and we had festivals and we had exhibitions, and we had all kinds of young talented people that came there and started working on what they really believed in. And we had all kinds of discussion, and there was not a real plan. We just had this dream, and we convinced the owner of this building that we could try this dream. And the first contract we had about this building was only for 3 months. And the second was another 6 months, and then it still exists, and that's now for 15 years, although it's still called Temporary Art Center. And as you can see in these pictures, it's more about people and the interaction from me with people. And although I was designing, in a way, future plans and the future of this center and the future of how young artists could be presented and could be meeting each other, I was mainly designing by talking to people. And I started doing that in my work as well. I started, in the meantime, started my own company, and not only designing and drawing anymore, but I started talking and talking and talking to all kinds of people, and not only to the professionals and the urban planners from the city government or to my colleagues as architects, but started talking to the kids that played on the playground. Not design for them, but design with them. And this gave a huge difference in my experience, because although there were so many people that have loads of experience and really know how city structures and projects work, there was another part of the information that was still missing, and it was the part that the people in the street just gave me. And I did all kinds of different types of asking questions, getting closer to them to really know what they wanted. And I didn't ask the question, what kind of master plan do you want for your neighborhood, or what kind of a vision do you have for your playground or your square you're living? But I started asking, how do you use it? Do you ever come here? And if you come here, is that during the day or during the night? Do you feel safe? Do you feel happy? Do you meet people? And all that kind of questions were in my work. And we started organizing events to meet them, and they started organizing events to meet each other. So at a certain moment, I didn't hardly have to do anything anymore. And meetings inside homes instead of inside of schools or government buildings. And giving people the opportunity to just play on the street and play with what they were doing, where they were living, and paying attention, made us sure to pay attention at certain things that they thought were important. They started just meeting with each other, and there were 4 hours of eating and drinking. And in between, there was 1 hour that we just had some talks about how the future of the neighborhood should look like. So this started pointing at me, you should pay attention to this because that is really important instead of what maybe the government says it to you. And people started talking to each other in a different way than before, having parties together and started playing theater from out of their own ideas and people that didn't meet each other before that. And in the meantime, in the background, I kept on drawing, I kept on designing, kept on putting their ideas in the traditional way of planning, because that is also what is necessary. It's not that you throw that away, but it's more on the background, and it's more in the meantime, you keep all these ideas and you keep all these dreams and all these visions, and you collect them and you somehow use them in the work and in the, because also the decision makers, they need to have these kind of plans. They need to have discussions with each other, and they need to have figures and numbers, and they need to know how much it costs and when it will be ready. So that is more and more, it was a kind of participation to the max, what I experienced both in the art center, in a total different way, because that was just go for it, make this festival, make this atelier, make this studio, just do it, and also in these urban planning projects. And then I thought, okay, we should give it a name, and I'm thinking of doing the name Open Source Urbanism might be a good name. And today we're going to talk about it because I don't know for sure if that's a good name, so maybe you can help me. And but first, then, what is open source? This is coming from the software engineering, and the source code is available to the general public. That is what it actually means. So public can add and change. And then what is open source in urban design or in architecture? The source information, the source or the information is available to the public, and the public can decide and design. So it's not me as a professional only, it's not them as pointing at, you should think of this, but it's also them, the public, the residents, the people who work there. They decide what is the most important thing and how to do it, maybe also design it. And that was really tricky, so I did that. And I did it for a few years now. But why? Okay, you can tell me at the end of this lecture and help me to find the keywords why it could be an interesting method, an interesting way of work. And I want to show that to you by showing 3 projects I've been doing in the last few years, and some of them were more successful than others. Some of them, one of them is really unsuccessful actually in this list, and together we might find out what the open source designing means. The first one is Space S, and in Space S there was this investor, Social Housing Corporation, and they said, okay, please tell me what should we build in a certain spot in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. There was like an area where with a very big density, they could fit like 400 houses there, and they wanted them there. So they asked me, what kind of houses, how should it look like? And I said, well, let's try the open source method, let's ask. Yeah, but nobody's there, there's nobody living there, so let's ask people who might be willing to live there. So if you would live there, what would you do? So this was the question: develop as fast as possible those apartments and use this co-creation method. So we had all kinds of meetings. This is going to go really fast. All kinds of meetings. We had newspaper articles. We had Facebook and all kinds of online growing community, but also online discussion. Not only the community, but also there was discussion about all the things that people wanted. And we gave people gave us information about what was necessary for them, but they give inspiration as well, how to do it, but also they had influence. It was not only that they said, this is what we would like, but they said, this is what we choose. We as a group, as being now here in this moment, we think when we're going to live there, this is what we choose. And these investors said, okay, if that's what you want, we're going to decide. And in the back, we were still drawing and we were still calculating if that is possible. But all of the suggestions that people made, as a group at least, were possible. And sometimes one said, I'd love to have a swimming pool on the roof, on top of the roof of the building. And the only thing we did was wait until somebody else of this group said, swimming pool on top of the roof, it's going to be way too expensive. And we probably have to pay for that. So there, the group discussions were more and more getting to a logical level of what is the expectation and what is necessary. Meetings, workshops, when we went to events where we could meet people, these pictures have already been, the choice making together, the results and the feedback. This is the investor, and this is the helping architect. Sometimes you have to help explaining by drawing what they were thinking of. And these were competitions among inhabitants. And suddenly there was, after a few months, there was a DNA. And this is probably visible still in 20 years, that these were the main topics that people wanted to see in this new neighborhood, in this housing block. And this was green and urban, but not on a natural way combined. And then it was having a place where you could sit together and meet in collective areas, but you could also have your own place. It should be very flexible, but it should also have boundaries in time and money, and you should know what you're up to. And they started designing. First, they started designing on the exterior level. First, because there was so often they had all these pictures and all those mood boards and all those things that they shown. They just sent it to us by email or whatever. They had my phone number. They just said, I have another reference project. This could be interesting. And it was almost in the beginning everything about outside areas. It was about gardens, what about roof gardens. So we said, okay, we hear that so much. We start with the outside instead of the building. We first say how the garden should look like. And then there came the blocks, and then the master plan, and the mix of people, and the mix of concepts of houses. And we started building, together with the architect, we started building apartments in real one-on-one scale. And this was all done in a very informal way. Nobody ever had meetings like, I want to see the report of this meeting. It was just, we just did it together as a group, and some of them were just future residents, and some of them were as me, helping them making their decisions. Sort of playing different types of houses, architecture, and they even managed to say, okay, we think there are too many student houses in this block. Is it possible for the investor that we lower down the amount of student houses and we make another house type extra, because we think it's not the right, it's not in the right balance. So they said all kinds of things that we said, okay, we have to think about it, but we can calculate on that because this is a very serious thing. And in the meantime, we started calculating and we started drawing all those things that is necessary. Meetings like this, you had to go with hundreds of people. Sometimes you had to make decisions that take some time, and especially it takes some preparation to what kind of way to ask the questions, to have the discussion. Zooming in, and then the residents started to collect new residents, and they started explaining their plan instead of that we were explaining the plan. And then it was almost the end, and they started building. And of course, they wanted to see every single week. They wanted to go inside this building area, and it was very frustrating, but also very funny for the constructors because they said, oh, we're not used to that. So then suddenly there was this guy, and he came there pretty much every few days, and they were getting totally fed up with him. But we connected him, and then at a certain moment he started to be the photographer of the whole project. And then they liked it again. So we came into connections in a different way than they usually did. And of course, at a certain moment, the people who were building there, they started to know him as well. And they didn't build anymore only for their boss and for their money, but they also built for this guy, this 20-year-old kid that was there and taking photos of them. And they started to know why they did it instead of money or because their boss said it. Having fun, and the result was a normal price, normal rent, everything was done in time, and the quality was much higher, and the people were much more involved. And at this moment, we've got already 4 prizes won in the Netherlands, and the one was a nomination that was yesterday about the prize of the Dutch Architecture Prize for 2017 about this project. So it's nominated for the last 8 buildings, which is funny because in the beginning everybody thought, how can those people make decisions? They're not professionals, they're not architects. How can they do that? And they thought it will take way too much time. But why didn't it happen? Probably because first, the quality, they wanted to have quality for themselves, but they knew what quality was for them. And they were, with 400 people, or maybe even more, they were looking at every decision we made. And for one part of the project, some people were very much interested, for example, for the gardens. And for the other part of the project, other people were very much interested. So we had all these qualities, we were bounded together, and everybody did his or her job just from what their background was or what their interest was. And of course, they wanted to have normal rent. The same with the investor, it should not cost that much. So, in a way, it's very logical that the quality is high and the price is low and the rent is, and the time is fast. But everybody was exactly for these 3 elements very afraid to start it. And these are the final pictures. During the first weeks, this is an interesting family. They are almost all pretty much blind, so that's why they have these colors in their house. There's also a group of, how do you call it, verstandelijk handicapped, mentally disabled. No, they are blind, so they use colors inside their house a lot for, well, because that comes closer and it's more recognizable where the wall starts and not. So this is totally different than this guy's house or this one. They wanted it very bright and modern, but we had special projects with this family about so that they could also make decisions about the whole project as well. The same counts with people who were having mentally disabled, and there was also a group of 30 people that was in Eindhoven ik weet het al niet meer in het Nederlands. Well, another group that has some special attention the nerds. They all have computer nerds. Not only well, it got back. Anyway, we had special projects, side projects, to keep all those people that were just part of the society and just wanted to live here as well, to keep them into the group and also keep them making them able to make their decisions on what they were living. Socially retarded? Yeah, but that's not what I mean. I don't know what the Dutch word either. Yes, the autisten. You know autist? Same word. There was 30 autists, and they would never sit here. There was too much noise in a group like this, so we had special meetings with them as well. And we had special needs for them inside the building, all within the same project, within the same time. Autisten, dankjewel. So that was Space S, and this project, like I said, it is sky high in the Netherlands, and we never expected it to be that popular. But the energy during this project, I've never seen anything like that. It's been so much fun working on that. And the good thing was just to keep on track. We said in the beginning, we are going to do it together, we are going to make decisions together, we're going to design together, and we did it up until the total end. And there was Utrecht, and it was last year. There's Boex is also an investor, and they asked me, okay, there's a neighborhood, and in Utrecht, and it is this area, and we also have about 400 houses. They're already there, and we didn't renovate them for years. Please come here, we need a different method. And the inhabitants said, please come here, we need a different method. Actually, the residents said it first, and after that, the investor also said, oh yeah, maybe this kind of way of working will really help. So we made a start document, so this kind of a first agreement on what is the main thing that we wanted to do, what is the DNA of this future of this neighborhood. And I tried in the same way as I did in Ейндховенді in the other project to get close to all these people, to have fun with them, to have a little bit relaxation, because this was an area where everybody was already very much tense. There was a lot of tension between the investor and the residents. Everybody was saying, this is never gonna work, that I spoke, but there were only a few people that said, okay, let's try it again. We are going to make a new, better place of our own homes and our own neighborhood. And we had this kind of way of, we tried to collect some kind of small sentences that could lighten up a little bit, and we could see the neighborhood in a different way. And of course, we made some plannings that people could react on. But actually, it was after a few months that I already said, yeah, but actually we want to just negotiate. We just want to negotiate about how high the price should be. And they were saying about this, we actually, there is 25 words on these pictures. And I think we have had 25 different versions of this picture. Because, or maybe 30, because they pointed at every single small word, and they were so distrustful to each other, and at a certain moment, also distrustful to me. They really didn't trust me, because I still didn't find the right word yet. And I tried to make it fun, and I tried to make it getting close, and I wanted to go into the neighborhood. And as soon as I started almost calling at somebody's doorbell, there was one of the people I used to work with, one of the residents, said, no, you're not allowed to talk to those people. And I said, why? Yeah, but maybe they won't believe you, or maybe you're going too fast, and maybe, so they were very anxious that I would get new ideas and new people around, and they were really, no, you're talking to me, you're not talking to them, I will talk to them, and you were talking to me as a first group. And this was what it was like. It was just like a normal Dutch neighborhood. It was, okay, really, the houses were run down, and it really needed something to do. But it was nothing really special about this whole neighborhood. But the problem was I couldn't get attached to those people. They couldn't get attached to me, and I couldn't get attached to them. And then I tried, but it was only this. It was only lists, it was words, it was only all kinds of plannings and blank. And I quit, or actually they told me to quit at a certain moment. They didn't trust the way I felt about this whole project. I wanted to come close to each other, and they wanted to negotiate. And in the beginning I already said, if you want to have a mediator and somebody who is really negotiating, don't take me. I can make this whole neighborhood get involved. I can do all kinds of work, but don't use me for that. Don't use me as being a politician or really being a bookkeeper or whatever. And in the end, they said, yeah, maybe we need a bookkeeper. And the third project is about Oost-Oekraïne. Well, probably you know what that means. It means Eastern Ukraine, Mariupolio. and I did that project for Izolacia in 2015, and this is the final result. It's a glossy magazine, but actually it's not the final result, it's only the start. But since then it's hard to get it going again. But this was Mariupol, and well, you all know where it lives, of course, where it is. And this is how the first impression was. I came there, and from 50 kilometers from Mariupol, there were these kinds of entrances. We're talking in the zoo project about entrances. This is a kind of an entrances. And it was both terrible, but it was also exciting. It was really exciting that you had to pass all these things. And on the other side, people from the same country with the same language, with the same everything, were just living. I was so much always telling myself, the people, they live there, they fall in love, they kiss, they marry, they go to school, they work, they eat, they do everything that is nice, they try to make as much out of it. So this looks really strange, but there are people there living there and trying, what can I do to help them and to give perspective? And it's not only the war, but because there's some history in here as well, it's also the pollution and the factories. And so, of course, there's a beach, but when there are people swimming there, I don't know if anybody comes from Mariupol, but it's not the cleanest sea in the world, let's say it in that way. And you can look at the health figures, it's really, really quite terrible to see how many extra cancer figures there are in Mariupol compared to, for example, Kiev. Empty stores or cafeterias, old police cars. I like this very much, but it's of course also a little bit run down. Areas like this. And I was just there and trying to find out what is Mariupol actually like. Never been there before, and trying to do some calculations and trying to research about the population and about the background history, and of course making some maps about how is this is a map about pollution and how the factories are connected to the wind, and so where is the development possibilities and what is good and what is bad. And of course I met Oleg there because that's how it all started, and he was giving a lecture and we sat together later on, and I really liked this idea of small actions and interviewed him. But then at a certain moment for me things became clear because I started talking to the people. The bad thing was I didn't know any Russian, I didn't know any Ukrainian language, so I had to use pictures, which is really funny, and there were also words, but we had to use pictures, and people helped me, of course. And then I tried to get in contact with people in the street and find out what for them was the most important. And it was just a very, very easy way. But I also asked to the militaries, I went just around. I asked to the people who were already some grassroots projects in neighborhoods, and maybe even the fisherman that is catching the fish in the most polluted river in probably the whole of Europe. And those people were very, very surprised. Why do you ask? And this guy was crazy, yeah. And it made, and then at a certain moment, there was, it doesn't really matter what it said, but they said, this is good and this is bad. It was pretty clear what was necessary in this city. I didn't have to speak to all the architects because the architect said the only thing we need to do is monuments and historical buildings. 8 out of 9 architects were their answers. And I thought, is that what is really necessary? I'll ask it in the street. Some of those pictures say historical buildings. I think none of the people in the streets thought it was any importance at this moment. So what does the architects think of? We, us, many of the people here are somehow connected to the architecture. Why do we think that monuments are very important in Mariupol? I really didn't get that answer yet. Maybe you can help me. But the people said pretty clear about what the topics were that were needed. social topics, physical topics, cultural topics, economical topics, and this helped me a great deal. But in the meantime, they also said, the same as Oleg said. Oleg Drozdev said, small actions, great undertakings, start with small actions. They said it in different words, but pretty much the same. There's no money, nothing will help. But when we start smart with something that is a success, small but successful, it's the only thing that needs. No master plans, no big, huge ideas which will never happen. Do something small. So there came the work urban acupuncture. Actually, they kind of helped me thinking of this word. And so the acupuncture, of course, means when you put a needle in some specific place, and you have to know which place, otherwise it's just pain. But when you know where to put it, this needle, then it helps for your whole body or whole parts of your body. It will help getting better. And the same counts for the city. If you know what to touch, where to program something, where to change something, in as small as a pick of a needle, but which has an influence because it's the right spot and it's the right kind of action, then you can maybe do something. And this I tried to translate into a map of interventions, very small, some a little bit bigger, but most of them very small, and it was just a concept from that point, and I wanted to go on because this was my idea, this was my interventions, but I wanted to start working together with the people in the street, maybe with this girl power lady. Okay, what is your interventions in the neighborhood? And make different maps on different themes. And then where it says this short-term urban architecture, they will help also during the long-term development. So now, of course, there's the conflict, there's the war, and at a certain moment, when that is over, also these interventions will help giving perspective and the first region. And this, I thought, because people were really thinking they lived in the worst place in the world. Everybody there was really, I think I met only 5 people that were a little bit optimistic. So I thought, okay, we need also something where you can say some pride. So I thought, okay, I'm not making an urban planner report, but I'm going to make it glossy. And feel free to look into it. And if you really like to, I've got 4 to take with you, so don't fight for it. But it's a glossy where okay, Mariupol also can be something else than it is now, and it can be, it can change, it can look forward, it has perspective. And this is the first glossy. And I hoped to say the second is already coming up, but maybe this year. And this is the thing where I'm now. So this is the middle successful. I mean, I think this project of the first few months helped, but now I'm also a little bit, okay, I asked to these people, what do you want? And I cannot promise anything will happen. And that's the point where I'm now, and that is also really difficult for me, because then you give expectations, maybe a little bit, but what is the next step? And maybe you can help me. What is the next step for this urbanism plan? So, I don't know how much I talked, but now it's up to you. 3 projects, you can have about more, you can ask about more, but 3 projects. And what are the key elements of this kind of work? And how can it help, for example, for Mariupol? How can you help me? What can you think of? So this is not a presentation, this is an open source presentation, which means it's just like a conversation. Anybody, what did you hear about the key elements of open source urbanism?
Communication.
This goes too fast. Communication. The next one was?
Participation. Interest.
Involvement, interest. Inclusion. This? Fun, yes. Very important. No, I'm not gonna. Anybody else? Society building. Society building, yes. Trust. Thank you. Hope. Okay, who's architect here in this room or is architecture student? Did you learn anything about these words during your education? That's interesting, yeah? Why not? Okay, so this is really another way of working. You have to find it yourself. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time. What else?
Top roof gardens.
Top roof gardens. You need top roof gardens to have a good. And I think you also mean collective space. That is probably. Anybody else? Okay, let's leave it with this. So, what could be the next step then I don't have a slide for that, for Mariupol knowing this? Please, and this is a more serious question, because this I could have imagined maybe myself, but what could be, knowing that there is a long-term perspective and also urban acupuncture, interventions, ideas, what could be the next step for me, for us, for Oleg to do in Mariupol? Please help me. To act. Monuments. Thank you. To act. How to act, Oleg?
Maybe art interventions.
Art? Yes. It's almost the same.
Picnics together.
But where to start? What did you say? Dinner. And who is doing this?
Good question. How it is possible to imagine picnics under poisonous pollutions? Something.
People swim there.
People swim, yes.
Yeah, but anyway.
Angling, doing more. Angling. Show me the angler who trying to catch.
Yes. But without a fish, he probably would be more hungry.
Maybe for kitten, small
Kitten.
kitten.
Maybe for a small kitten, for which poison is not that bad.
It's a very serious problem to reduce toxic pollution.
Yeah. But where to start? Go back to the act, just to act, art, and picnics, and eat. Yeah, act, art, eat. Yeah, where can you start?
You need to define something like players or something who act, who can interact, and define your role. For how long do you come? Maybe what you need in some kind of institutionalization, like where you have something which has some rules, and then it acts in some way, and people could approach some certain people or some institution or some place with the rules. Because, I don't know, how do you feel? Like you did some projects, then you leave, what is left? Or would society organize themselves by themselves or not?
I really like that idea. You say, okay, as an architect or an urban planner, what do you leave to keep the energy going, to keep, or is it your own role, maybe? Oh, sorry. Is it your own role to stay there always a little bit? There's a beautiful book about an architect in the Netherlands, and she, when her company was like 30 years old, she visited all her old buildings that she designed, and she had conversations and took pictures. That's really nice to see. But it was only after 30 years. And your suggestion is stay there. I mean, but I had to go back to the Netherlands, but I couldn't.
I think you should stay there, but I actually ask you a question. When you are coming there, what you are thinking about? If you are not going to stay there, then you need to pass this fire burning to some other people.
Yeah, I was a little bit naive when I went there, or also open-minded. Yes, but maybe that's the reason why I'm here now. Because the fire is still maybe too much with me, but I decided to come back and try to find new ways. But I was naive to think that I could not, I could deal with these expectations also in myself.
I think you should create some kind of platform to connect all niches that already exist in this city, because I'm sure that there are some local people who also think this way, but maybe they're not strong enough for action.
Interesting idea.
If you get them together, you can move forward faster.
Yes, platform. And I don't exactly know. There is some connection, but they don't work together that much. So I think it's really a good idea. Yes.
People are very isolated from each other. There is a problem not only for Mariuполь, Kharkiv also.
Kharkov is the same? Can you explain?
You see, there is feelings that people are...
Can you understand? Do you hear what he's saying?
No.
Okay.
You see, people are very insulated, very insulated in Kharkiv and maybe in Mariupol also. They are submerged in their own problems to earn money for living. This is the main obstacle.
And you say you're looking for a solution to get them out of this isolation.
Yes, I think it is very interesting. It would be very interesting to keep them go out from this isolation. So
do you have a solution for that?
See, hardly can imagine.
Maybe some of you, do you recognize this isolation? So, the isolation. Do you recognize in Kharkiv there's isolation? People are isolated too much, they don't meet too much?
Just protests help very much.
Protest. Oh, we need an enemy. Yeah, we need an enemy. That's an interesting as well. Well, there is an enemy, I think, but it's not strong enough, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe art and interactive art and educational spaces like parks and something.
Yes. Art, you've got art here, and education space. Well, things like this is usually what I do. Try to find this energy. Now here, talking about Mariupol is maybe a secondary way to do it. I'd love to do that back in Mariupol. When I have a meeting like that, probably it's, I can ask, okay, where could this place be, this education place? Where do we have this first picnic? Where can we make a platform? Who is able to do that? And then it's going to be more close to you, even. And that is the way I hope to take the next steps. And this is pretty much how I look at architecture and urban planning.
But can you organize a meeting in Mariuполь?
Yes, of course I can.
Can you talk to them?
Language is a big problem. Language is a big problem. I am even...
I think you need a friend.
I think I need a friend, but I think even in England, I would have a lot of difficulty because doing projects like, for example, the Space S project, because many times I'm just translating what, for example, the mayor thinks he wants, and then what the resident thinks he wants, and but they all speak Dutch, but they speak different languages still, and you have to really be very good in these languages. And the same counts for Mariupol. It's a good question. Difficult, so communication, and I'll say language with a question mark. Is it possible? Is it possible? Bogdan.
We're talking kind of really about abstract things now, and Mariuполi we could change name to any other cities.
No, that's like I said.
Some data, some society mapping, like what are the influential groups in Mariupol, or at least I think I can share you the list of local NGOs. And do you have actually some contacts?
Yes, I do. But I was just trying to explain how I would work in Mariupol, and here, like I just said, you're totally right. It's very abstract. It stays abstract. It's like, yeah, we can think of something like that. When I would do this in Mariupol, and maybe I will, depending on the language or the friend or the interpreter, or when I do this in Mariupol, then I would ask okay, where to do this picnic? Who are the stakeholders? Where is already energy going? What is the worst place to change? I mean, to put where do we put the needle? This kind of a needle, and then you can be more precise and more specific about what you're really gonna do instead of abstract things. You're right, but this is because we were talking about Mariupol and Kharkiv a little bit indirect, of course. I think this is it. This is what I do. This is how I work, and I hope you like it and the results.